All right, so, you sent us those excerpts mostly from that Las Nueve Revelaciones thing, and we thought this would be a great deep dive to, kind of go over some of the main points, the stuff that really stood out to us.
Definitely. And I think the part that really stood out to both of us was this manuscript supposedly found in Peru.
Right.
And all this mystery surrounding it.
Yeah.
The government denials and, just the secrecy behind it. It kind of makes it feel like it's, really something.
Yeah, totally. And then you jump into this idea of the first revelation. Yeah. And Charlene talks about this, growing awareness of all these coincidences. Right. Almost too many to be just random chance. It's this kind of exciting feeling like there's, more going on than we realize.
It's almost like a return to childhood.
Yeah.
Where everything is new and mysterious, and you just have that sense of wonder.
Exactly. And, the narrator even talks about being skeptical at first. Right. Which I think is really relatable, because I think anybody who hears these sorts of ideas thinks, is this just random? Or are people just seeing what they want to see? Yeah. But as these coincidences keep happening and they start to feel more and more meaningful, it really makes you question things.
Well, and, it's almost like a battle between logic and your intuition.
Totally.
Like that feeling that there's something more to it than just random chance.
Yeah. So the takeaway here is it's not just about noticing coincidences. It's about this bigger shift in perspective. It's about going from a purely material worldview to one that includes those underlying patterns, the hidden meaning in everyday events.
Which actually segues quite nicely into the second revelation, which Dobson talks about on the plane.
Right.
And what's really interesting about this one is it puts these ideas into this larger historical context. And when you look at it through that lens, it makes it seem not only plausible, but like almost inevitable.
So let's break down that historical view a little bit.
Okay.
Dobson talks about this, shift that's happened over the last 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Starting with, this world where God and spirituality were a given, this unquestioned authority in people's lives. And then over time, that certainty starts to erode, and people begin to focus more on the tangible. Yeah. This world of secular progress and material security.
And the problem with that is it kind of became this obsession.
Right.
This pursuit of secular security. It became so all-consuming that we kind of lost sight of those deeper spiritual questions.
Right.
The why behind it all.
Yeah, like the purpose of life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like we traded one form of certainty for another.
And I think it really rings true with how so many people feel today.
Oh, absolutely.
Just constantly busy with work and all the practicalities of life. Almost like we're avoiding having to face those bigger, more unsettling questions about meaning and purpose.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Totally. So it's like this avoidance of a deeper insecurity.
It is, yeah.
About, the bigger picture.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
So with the second revelation, it's recognizing that this relentless pursuit of secular security has left this spiritual void.
Yes.
And to move forward, we need to see that historical arc.
Exactly. And the power of the second revelation is that it widens our perspective on time.
Right.
Instead of just looking at our own individual lives, we can see how this has been playing out for an entire millennium.
Yeah. So it's not just our own little struggles. It's something much bigger.
Exactly. And once we recognize that pattern, we can start to understand where it came from.
Right.
And then hopefully choose a different path.
Totally. All right. So we've gone from those strange coincidences to understanding the historical context that might explain why we're experiencing them now. And then the third revelation, which the narrator encounters at Vicente's property through Sarah.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
It talks about beauty as an indicator of underlying energy fields.
Right.
So it's suggesting that the things we find beautiful aren't just aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
They actually have this, greater vibrancy and a more defined structure and even more intense colors.
Yeah, it's like beauty is this visible manifestation of a deeper energetic reality.
It's like when you see a healthy, well-cared-for plant.
Yeah.
Compared to one that's been neglected.
Right.
The healthy one almost seems to glow. And there's that experiment with the plants where the ones that received more direct human attention, not just physical care, but even mental focus on their growth, they actually had, higher levels of protein and carbohydrates, vitamins and minerals. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So it really makes you think about the power
of our focus and our intention on the world around us.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. The people who could easily see these energy fields, they tended to eat mostly vegetables.
Right.
Especially those really vibrant, potent ones.
Right.
That they had grown themselves.
So it's like they were drawn.
Like they were.
Into these higher energy sources. And we even get a description of the narrator seeing these energy fields between Phil and Sarah, this yellow or yellowish pink illumination, and this whitish pink field around their upper bodies.
It's almost like an aura.
Yeah.
Something that's usually considered mystical.
Right.
But here it's presented as something perceivable.
So the main takeaway from the third revelation is beauty isn't just subjective.
Right.
It's a sign of underlying energy fields.
Yes.
And our focus and attention can actually influence the energetic potency of living things.
Yeah, that's a powerful concept.
And this experience really changed how the narrator saw things. Yeah. Like, suddenly, the trees and plants weren't just scenery.
Right.
They had this unique presence that he was seeing for the first time.
Like a whole new dimension had been revealed.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on to the fourth revelation.
Yeah.
This is where Will introduces the idea that the entire universe is interconnected through this single dynamic energy field.
Right.
And this field can sustain us and even respond to our expectations. But the problem is we humans have become largely disconnected from it.
Right.
And that leads to feelings of weakness and insecurity and even separation.
Yeah. And because of that disconnection, we start trying to take energy from other people to compensate for what we're lacking.
Right.
And that's where a lot of human conflict comes from.
Yeah, everything from, petty arguments to huge wars.
Absolutely. And, Renaud, who has a background in psychology, he talks about how the need to control and dominate in interactions isn't just about achieving some goal.
Right.
It's also about this psychological reward.
Yeah.
You get this boost from feeling stronger when someone else feels weaker.
It's like those times when you leave an interaction feeling drained.
Yeah.
Even though nothing overtly bad happened.
Exactly. You just feel depleted.
Right. And the example with the restaurant owner, his wife, and the young girl.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really stark example of this kind of psychological manipulation.
Yeah.
You can just see how the young girl's being drained by that power imbalance. So the main point here is a lot of our conflicts aren't about external resources.
Right.
It's about this internal need for energy, which we try to get through manipulation because we feel disconnected from that larger energy source.
Exactly. And it's unsettling to think that
it is
so much of what we see playing out is driven by this need for energy. And it's even suggested that we can actually see this energy moving between people.
So we can literally witness that exchange of vitality.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought.
Okay, so now we come to the fifth revelation, which the narrator encounters at the mission with Father Sanchez.
Right.
And this is about this growing awareness of what's been called mystical consciousness.
Yeah.
It's going from an abstract idea to something people are actually experiencing.
It's becoming more tangible.
And Father Sanchez talks about how it involves consciously directing our attention and energy outward with love toward others.
Right.
And the strange thing is that by giving energy away, we actually increase our own energy and our intuition becomes sharper.
It's counterintuitive, but that's how it works.
Totally. And this is where the control dramas come in. These unconscious ways we manipulate others to get energy.
Right.
And they list four main types.
Yeah.
The intimidator who uses force. The interrogator who constantly questions and criticizes.
Right.
The distant who withdraws. And the poor me who plays the victim.
Yeah, and the narrator even recognizes himself as playing the distant drama.
Which I think is something a lot of us can relate to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And the interesting thing is it connects these control dramas back to our early family experiences, suggesting that there are these learned patterns of interaction that we carry with us into adulthood. So understanding your own control drama and where it came from
Yeah.
is a key part of personal growth.
Absolutely. And it lets your true self come through.
Yeah, it helps break free from those ingrained patterns that drain our energy.
So recognizing these manipulation tactics in ourselves and others is crucial for breaking free from that cycle of energy theft.
Exactly. And there's also this broader evolutionary perspective that comes up during the narrator's experience at Kula.
Right.
They talk about the universe and life evolving from simple energy vibrations to increasingly complex forms culminating in humanity. So we're all part of this larger energetic flow.
Yeah, and that experience the narrator has in the jungle. Feeling lighter and more coordinated, perceiving those sparks of light and that pinkish glow, it really feels like he's tapping into that higher energy state.
Yeah, it's like a tangible experience of that universal energy we were talking about.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we get to the sixth revelation.
Okay.
And Father Sanchez talks about actively cultivating our own energy. So it's not just about understanding the problem. It's about doing something about it.
Taking action.
Right. And this involves things like quieting the mind.
Yeah.
Releasing those control dramas. And paying attention to intuitive thoughts and feelings. Which aren't necessarily logical.
Yeah. But more like those sudden flashes of insight.
Exactly. Those aha moments that seem to come out of nowhere.
Exactly. And the seventh revelation, which the narrator encounters with Pablo in prison, builds on this idea. It says we need to pay attention to those intuitive nudges, but also to synchronicities, those seemingly random coincidences that feel deeply meaningful. It's like the universe is trying to tell us something.
And there's this emphasis on looking for the positive, even in difficult situations. Like the narrator realizing his capture actually led him to important answers.
It's about trusting that there's a purpose, even when things seem bad.
So the takeaway here is by paying attention to our intuition and those synchronicities, and by looking for the positive everything, we can actually see how our lives are evolving.
Yeah, it's like we can see the path unfolding.
And the revelation says those recurring thoughts and intuitions, when we observe them without trying to control them, can actually show us the direction we're supposed to be going. Okay, so moving on to the eighth revelation. This one's about relationships and the conscious projection of energy between people. And this is where the revelations start getting really practical. Like how to interact with others in a more evolved way. A really important part of this revelation is how it views children. It encourages us to see them as these advanced beings who need consistent, unconditional, positive energy from adults. So instead of constantly correcting them, we should be giving them that support and encouragement.
Yeah, it's like a plant that needs sunlight and nourishment to grow.
Exactly. And the idea that each adult can only truly focus their energy on one child at a time. That's really interesting, especially for families with multiple children.
Yeah, it makes you think about the dynamics there and the potential for imbalance.
And then there's this idea of addiction in relationships, which is when one person's energy field becomes overly dependent on another's, and that prevents both people from connecting to their own source of energy.
Yeah, it's like they're tangled up and can't grow properly.
And that leads to the concept of consciously projecting energy to others, but without any expectations or any attempt to control them.
Just giving freely.
Exactly. And the idea is to help them see their own truth more clearly and access their own inner guidance. And that creates a natural flow of energy and a deeper understanding.
Which is the opposite of those codependent relationships.
It's like a healthy exchange instead of a drain.
Exactly.
So the takeaway here is that consciously giving positive energy without any strings attached actually helps others grow and strengthens our own connection to the universal energy.
And there's this really empowering idea that you can't get caught in a control drama unless the other person plays along. So the key is to recognize what's happening and send positive energy to the other person instead of getting sucked into their drama.
So you're basically seeing their true potential instead of reacting to their manipulation.
Exactly.
And finally, the eighth revelation touches on conscious group interaction, which is this idea that people only speak when they feel a surge of energy. And the rest of the group focuses their attention on that person. to help them express their idea.
So it's a totally different way of communicating.
It is, yeah.
All right, so now we get to the 9th revelation.
Okay.
Which is about our ultimate destiny and the future of humanity as a result of this conscious evolution. And this one's pieced together from conversations with Dobson and Father Sanchez and Julia.
Right.
And the revelation predicts this voluntary decrease in population because people will choose to live more sustainably.
Right.
In harmony with the Earth's most powerful and beautiful places. And interestingly, it envisions even more of these powerful zones emerging as we let forests grow and ecosystems flourish.
Yeah, it's like we're helping to create those spaces.
And the vision of the future is really transformative.
It is.
It talks about a world where our basic needs are met.
Through automation. So things like food and clothing and transportation would be readily available to everyone without needing money as we know it.
So our basic needs would be taken care of, leaving us free to pursue other things.
Exactly. And the whole premise is that humanity's purpose is to evolve consciously, to understand ourselves and our connection to this universal energy. And as we evolve, our culture and our society will change in predictable ways.
Yeah, that's the idea.
So the 9th revelation is saying conscious evolution is our destiny. And it will completely change how we live and interact with the planet.
It will.
And it talks about this initial period of deep introspection as more and more people wake up. And there'll be this reevaluation of values and a deeper appreciation for the natural world. And that will lead to a demand to stop harming the planet.
Exactly. And the economic system will change too. People will be valued for their insights and their wisdom. And that will be the driving force behind the economy, eventually leading to full automation.
So it's like we're shifting from material wealth to spiritual and intellectual capital. And the long-term vision is amazing.
It is.
Humans living in harmony with these thriving forests, consciously raising their energy levels, moving to a higher vibrational state.
And this isn't just some metaphor. It's an actual energetic transformation.
And this is where it gets really mind-blowing. The revelation predicts that as groups of people reach a certain energy level, they'll actually become invisible to those who are vibrating at a lower frequency.
Like they disappear from that reality.
And they describe it as this feeling of lightness and freedom. They even mention the Mayans as a culture that some believe has already made this transition.
It's a pretty wild idea.
It is, yeah. And at this point, the narrator has this really strong thought about Charlene, suggesting that there might be a 10th revelation that goes beyond what's in these excerpts.
But like there's even more to discover.
No, right? It's like there's always another layer.
Always.
So these insights from Las Nueve Revelaciones, they're pretty profound.
They are.
And maybe even challenge some of our basic beliefs about reality.
Yeah, I think they do.
So in this deep dive, we've covered the main ideas of those first 9 revelations, that growing awareness of meaningful coincidences, the historical context of our focus on material things, the idea that we can perceive energy fields through beauty, the unconscious competition for energy and how that leads to conflict, the emergence of mystical consciousness, the importance of developing our own energy, the significance of intuition and synchronicities, the dynamics of energy in relationships and those control dramas, and finally, this amazing vision of humanity evolving to a higher state of being. So for everyone listening, we encourage you to think about these ideas in your own life. See what resonates with you. See if you can recognize any of these patterns, maybe even those coincidences you might have dismissed before. So as you go about your day, we want you to think about this. What parts of these revelations really stand out to you? How could recognizing those coincidences or understanding control dramas or even just considering this idea of conscious energy interaction, how could that change your perspective on your everyday life? And could this vision of humanity evolving to a higher vibrational state, could that be a new way to understand the challenges we face and the incredible potential we have?
I think it's definitely worth exploring.
It definitely is food for thought.
Lots to think about.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time.
Take care.